Well, it's now Thursday at 4 p.m. and it seems with the coronavirus, it's changing moment by moment. I mean, each time we look at the paper or listen to something else has closed down, you know. So it's interesting for me because I've got all these series of, I mean, I've probably got in the next 3 months, like 40 aeroplanes to climb on and 40 places to go. Tomorrow night I'm supposed to go to Cluj-Napoca in Romania, where we have a small group, White Markala group. And they're telling me that their main hall has been cancelled and their other talk to a group of business people has been cancelled, but they're still hoping I'll come because they've got the centre. So I'm checking into my Wizz Air flight tomorrow night from Gatwick, but who will know? Then I've got to go to Poland from there for one day on the 18th to Krakow, but who knows what will happen to that? And then I've got to go back to Bucharest, but who knows what will happen to that? Then I've got to go to Zurich, and then I've got to go to Stockholm. So all I can do is, I've decided, all I can do is just act as if and go to the airport and see what happens, you know. So for my approach, which of course I'm trying to apply the Buddhist approach, what else? To analyze why do we freak out? Why am I nervous? Well, first of all, we don't like getting sick. We don't want to have a disease. We don't want to die, and we hear all these deaths. But then we realize, well, you know, Buddha's been telling us very quietly for 2,500 years that guess what, folks? Things change. Things are impermanent. So we all know that. But how do we apply that? Well, I think if we analyse how we have attachment, and attachment is this junkie in us that wants everything to be nice. Attachment is a junkie for everything to be comfortable and nice. So as soon as we hear that things are coming along that our attachment is unhappy with, which is unpleasant things, we freak out. And because we have attachment to everything to be nice, we don't want it to change. So it's bad enough where we have a fantasy, but then grasping that things is permanent kind of dumps another layer of problems onto it, and we can't bear things to change. So the reality is things change, and unless we're clairvoyant, we have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. So by understanding sincerely that things are impermanent, we start to get brave and greet the thing that comes, which we don't expect. And then certainly with attachment, I mean, what's the practice there? It's a huge one. I mean, aversion is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants, and aversion has either anger, irritation, upset, fear, you know, anxiety, panic. So what can we do? I mean, we can't magically change our minds overnight, but when we think of reality, that things are impermanent, and then we think of the reality of our own impermanence, our own attachment, we have to really counteract that and just try to be realistic. So practically speaking, there are things we can do as we understand. You know, we've just received information from Lama Zopa Rinpoche that there are various things we should do, prayers to stop the spreading of coronavirus. So I think what we need to do is we go onto the Jamyang's, you have to tell me the information.
Jamyang's website.
So if you go onto jamyang.co.uk, you're going to find a link to these practices that Rinpoche recommends. One is there's a certain motivation Rinpoche suggests we do. Then there's the Vajrayana mantra Rinpoche recommends, especially good for healing. And there's also the Black Manjushri mantra, and then there's some dedication prayers. So I think it's best you go to jamyang.co.uk and you'll find information there about where to find the mantras and find the practices. That would be excellent. But on a practical level too, we absolutely have to do what they all tell us, you know, not to touch our faces. And why not? I think it's because if the things that are on our hands, the whatever they call, that have got the disease, that have got whatever it is, they last for a few days, and if you touch your mucous membranes, that's how it gets into your system. So do the practical things. But we can also see, and it's easy enough to say, there's no point in worrying, but it's a fact. We can't help it, but we have to analyse our minds and try to just be practical and try not to have panic and just live our lives and do the best we can. And yeah. So why do we have fear? What's that got to do with attachment? I think this is a part of our problem. We hear the word attachment, and unless we've really studied the Buddhist teachings in depth, and unless we've actually practiced, I mean, as Lama Yeshe says, I can tell you about attachment for one whole year. We'll never begin to understand it until we start to really look deeply inside. When we start to analyse the function of attachment, really, I like to say that it's just like this junkie in us every single second. We mightn't even notice it, but it's always there driving all of our decisions. So attachment is this little junkie in us that only can cope with things that are nice, only wants the nice things. We want to have things to be pleasant sounds, pleasant smell, pleasant taste, pleasant experience, you know, pleasant feelings, the things that happen out there to be things that our attachment wants. And the second our attachment doesn't get what it wants, and that's called problems. And what's a problem? Coronavirus is a problem. Disruption of things, you know, disruption of all the things that we consider our life, things closing down, courses ceasing, retreats stopping, the Lama stopping coming, your job maybe closing, then of course it brings panic, because attachment doesn't like problems, basically. It's really as simple as that. And so when we say panic, I mean, it's a very broad word, you know. If we really analyze this relationship between attachment and aversion, as we know, Buddha talks about the 3 poisons. Well, the 2 main ones that run our lives, attachment is the one that's the basic assumption every second, I must get what I want. And then its response is really what's called anger. We mightn't think we're angry, but aversion is really the state of mind. And aversion is what arises the moment attachment doesn't get what it wants. So then it can be strong anger, it can manifest as irritated, upset, annoyed, or it can be stress and worry and fears. This is really the way it is when attachment doesn't get what it wants, because we can't predict what's going to happen. We imagine all sorts of scenarios, you know. So there's a very strong relationship between attachment and fear and panic. And when we realize that all the delusions, the way Buddha describes, all the delusions are rooted in fear, and they're all the voices of I, you know. And so it's interesting. For example, I think of the Tibetans, you know, in 1957, 56, 55, whenever, there were already hints of what was going on. But because their universe had been so powerfully stable for God knows 1,000 years, whatever it was, you know, I'm not very good at history, and there was no way in the universe they would have expected what would happen in 59. Unless you were completely clairvoyant, you could not possibly see it's coming. So because you've got the status quo, this is the way our country is, this is our world, this is how things are, you can't even imagine the likelihood of this horrible thing happening. So because it's so horrible, we just think, how can it happen? Or it can't be possible. This can't be possible. That's how attachment thinks. And then, because we grasp the status quo as permanent, everything's lovely, it has to remain lovely. So there's all these different delusions playing their roles. So we just can't believe it. We'll go, it's not possible. When things really badly, we go, this is not possible. How can this be happening, we say. It's just plain foolish. It's just foolish. When terrible disasters happen, no one's going to anticipate them. So it's not as if you have to think, oh, well, the worst thing can happen and get depressed. No, not on the contrary. But realizing we can't guarantee bad things will happen, and realizing we're not clairvoyant and we can't see it, we just have to, you know, take one step at a time, see things as impermanence, to keep our mind steady. What else can we do, you know? What else can we do?